The last Beef Up Front episode of the year 2024. Hard to believe it. It's been a little bit wild, Joe. Holidays, some illnesses, some technical difficulties on our last show. But we're here. We're at the College Football Playoff Quarterfinals now. We are down to the final 8 teams. Two really good matchups, I think. Potentially great matchups. I think one might be an all-time classic. And then 2 so-so matchups, but still, it's football. It's going to be on the TV. We're going to watch it. And that one is Penn State, Boise State tonight, and Texas versus Arizona State to kick us off tomorrow. But, Joe, welcome back. How are we? And are we ready to attack these next 2 days for these big playoff games?
Yeah, Coyle, I'm excited. Good to be back. Like you said, we had some technical I'm having technical difficulties right now. Couldn't hear each other when we tried to do the podcast for the first round games. We ended up watching the first round games together. I came down to Philly. Not really the best games, but it's kind of anticipated when you get home games in the first round. All these people bitching about other teams that should have been or not. That's another time. That's another show we can do about arguing who deserved to get in or not. But we just saw Bama today lose to Michigan. That wasn't really a good showing when you had Milroe and a lot of guys playing and not opting out of the bowl game. You got bullied by Michigan, who one of the weirdest ways to end their season. You beat Bama and Ohio State back to back. Pretty good wins for the Wolverines to build momentum going into next year. But I'm really excited for these quarterfinal games. Like you said, 2 games, spread-wise within 2.5 points. 2 games with, bigger spreads. But I got a feeling that one of them that we're going to talk about is going to be a little bit closer than people think. And I really hope that's the case because tonight I don't want that game to be a blowout. But
yeah, hoping for tonight to end it on a good note. I remember last time on New Year's Eve with Georgia and Ohio State, that was an all-timer. On New Year's Eve. So hopefully we are tuned into something quite as good as that. But we'll start it off. Only 4 games to get into. As we said, we got Tuesday and Wednesday night football that we'll be breaking down. 1 game tonight and then 3 games tomorrow. So, Joe, we'll start it off with the game tonight, New Year's Eve. Number 6, the 6 seed Penn State at 12-2, coming off that romping of SMU. They'll be playing number 3 Boise State, 12-1, the G5 representative, their first ever college football playoff game. 7:30 kick on ESPN. This one's out at the Fiesta Bowl out in Glendale, Arizona. Penn State, 11-point favorite. Over/under is 53. Can the Ashton Jeanty show, Joe, go on and make a run to the semifinals here?
I don't think so, Coyle. I'm taking Boise State plus 10 because, as I've said to you, I don't know if I said it on the show back in the summertime, I had a dream bet, told you all about it. It was Boise State to make the playoff and win a game. So I'll be taking Boise State plus the points here. But I'm going to go Penn State 38, Boise State 28. I'm going to take the over in this game. I think this game will be close throughout. I think Penn State scores a late touchdown, with like 5-6 minutes left to kind of put Boise to bed. And, they'll end up winning by double digits. But I do think it's going to be a very good game. I'm excited to see Jeanty against this Penn State defense. When they played Oregon earlier in the year, he still got his, numbers. Like, I'm not really concerned about him having a bad game. But a bad game for Jeanty could be 104 and a touchdown. But I think he'll be able to, still get what he needs. I think Boise State will stay in this game because Penn State, offensively really hasn't been tested yet this playoffs. Like getting 2 pick sixes to go up, really early against SMU and being at home, that really helped in what's going to probably be a more 50-50 type of crowd out in Arizona for this game. It's going to be interesting to see how that Penn State offense responds, especially if, let's say, Boise State start out first 2 drives, 2 touchdowns. It's 14-7. Penn State has to respond. It's going to be interesting early to see how that offense is clicking. I know, the big talk has been Boise State's pass defense, but I still think it's going to be interesting to see how they deal with Penn State.
Yeah, the thing I'm most interested in is Jeanty even said it the other day. This is the freshest I've felt since Labor Day weekend, the season opener against Georgia Southern. And I know Georgia Southern's not some world-beating team, but 267 yards and 6 touchdowns that game.
Insane.
That was kind of his, for people that follow the sport, they were aware of him, but that was kind of his introduction to the superstar season that he was going to have. If he's saying he's feeling anywhere close to that, Penn State's got to be a little bit worried. Jeanty has gone over 125 yards in every game this year. He only had 1 game without a touchdown, and he didn't play in the second half of that one in a 56-14 victory. So as dominant of a season we've seen, and it's going to be interesting to see how that stacks up now against a Big Ten school in Penn State. I mean, even against Oregon, you kind of touched on it earlier, but he still went for 25 for 192 and 3 touchdowns. But that was an Oregon team that's not the Oregon team we've seen now. Like, if we remember the week 1 game against Idaho, they were even really struggling in that one. Penn State, on the other hand, really stifled SMU in their rushing attack last week. 58 total yards, 1.6 yards per carry. So is Penn State able to bottle up Ashton Jeanty as well? Ashton Jeanty's 2 worst games of the season you could probably look at. UNLV last game in the Mountain West Championship, where he still went for 209 and a touchdown, but he was bottled up kind of throughout. And then Jeanty had a big run, and he did that as well in the regular season game against them. So he's got that kind of, I like to compare it to what Saquon does for the Eagles, where I think it was last week he had 12 for 26 at one point, but then all he needs is to rip off 150-yard run, and that's the game-changing type play. Can Jeanty do that? I think that is the major difference. Or is Penn State able to just keep them to 5-6 yards a carry? Because if they are, I think the passing game for Boise State isn't going to be able to open it up enough. So I do think this one is going to be tight. 11 points is just too much for me to take with Penn State, with that good of a player in Jeanty that can flip the switch, can take it to the house at any given time. So I will take Boise State to cover, but I'm going to go Penn State to win 31-23. Boise State plus 11 over 53. But this is going to be one of the main kind of talking points as well that we see, like Boise State off the bye, Arizona State off the bye, Oregon off the bye, and Georgia off the bye. Penn State, Texas, Ohio State, and Notre Dame all played just last week, and they all played really well in that regard as well. So what do they look like coming into this one, having played more recently? And does the rest really benefit these teams off the bye? That's something that I'm sure going to be talking about next show. But I think Penn State wins and they move on to the semifinals. All right, we go to Wednesday now, the first game of the new year. Number 5, Texas at 12-2. Offense looked great against Clemson for the first time in a while. They play number 4, Arizona State, one of the stories of the year in college football, coming in at 11-2. 1 o'clock kick on ESPN. This one's at the Peach Bowl down in Atlanta, Texas. 13-point favorite. Over under is 51.5.
Yeah, kind of a tough draw for Arizona State here. I know the fact that they got a bye, I guess, is kind of makes up for it, but because they were the 4 seed, they didn't get to pick where they play. So now you're playing in Atlanta, where Texas just played, at the beginning of the month against Georgia. Now you're going back to that stadium. It's going to definitely be a pro-Texas crowd. I am going Texas 38, Arizona State 10. I think this game is going to be a blowout. I really hope I'm wrong because, like I said, I want to see close games, want to see an upset. But I'll take Texas minus 13. I'm going to go under 51.5 just because I don't think Arizona State will be able to score that much to make, keep that over alive. But I think this is going to be a game, McClay, Coyle, we've talked about it with him for March Madness. He likes doing these like low seeded teams race to 10 because they start out hot. I might bet Arizona State first drive touchdown. I could see them going on script, Scattaboo breaking a couple of runs, breaking tackles, Arizona State getting a lot of momentum. Maybe they score on their first drive, whether they get the ball first or not. And people are going to be saying, hey, Arizona State can hang around. After that, I think the air is going to kind of come out of the sails a little bit. But that's definitely a bet I'm going to play tomorrow. Arizona State first drive touchdown, maybe even first quarter spread, because I think it'll be close early. After that, I think it's going to be all Texas. You're going to see the talent and that experience because this is a Texas team as well that last year was in the semifinals that a lot of people, including myself, thought were going to beat Washington, ended up falling short in that game. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see how Texas responds coming out in this game after a big win last week.
Yeah, I'm going to go with a dog walking in this one too. Texas 31, Arizona State 14. I think Texas has a legit shot to win the national title. My pick to win the national title is going to be I know it's a little obvious at this point, but the winner of this Ohio State Oregon game, whoever wins next week against Texas, I think wins it all. I think whoever comes out of kind of that upper part of the bracket is going to be your champion. Those are the 3 highest odds teams right now as well, but still Texas, their offense really impressed me a couple weeks ago there against Clemson. The running game, that one running back, I think it was Blue, who it was, he had a rocket up his ass. It seemed like he was able to turn the corner and just kind of do whatever he wanted in that game. Arizona State, I don't think seen kind of that speed on that side of the ball this year. Like we've talked about, they've been a great story, a really fun team too, and a scrappy bunch. Like they're coming into this one as a 13-point underdog, chip on their shoulder for sure. They're going to be motivated. They're going to be fired up. Kenny Dillingham, I really love what he's done. And I think this is like a sustainable thing going forward in the Big 12, that this can be a legit year in and year out Big 12 contender if he's in the picture. But I just think it comes down to dudes at the end of the day, and Texas just has too many of them. They've been building way longer than this Arizona State team has. They're way deeper, and I think that they're playing really confident right now, coming off of that beatdown of Clemson a few weeks ago. Clemson kind of fought back, but Texas really controlled that game pretty much from start to finish after the kind of slow start there. So I really like Texas to win this one. I think that they'll win this one pretty convincingly. Really strong run defense, and Arizona State, what's their strength? Their running game. So they're going to try and live and die with Scadaboo, and I hope he has a great game. It would be a fun way to kind of start the year, but I think Texas is going to win this one 31-14. I'll go Texas minus 13, under 51.5. All right, the one I'm most excited for, and I think most people are most excited for, maybe not you, Joe, but number 8, Ohio State at 11-2 versus number 1, Oregon 13-0, undefeated Big Ten champs, won the regular season matchup as well. 5:00 kick on ESPN at the Rose Bowl. Ohio State, a 2.5-point favorite, over under 55.5.
Coyle, this game is going to rock. I'm going Ohio State here, 27-18. So I'm going to take Ohio State minus 2.5. I'm going to go under 55.5. That's a total I'm going to stay away from on New Year's Day. But I think this is going to be a pretty good slugfest type of game. I think kind of similar to how I was saying with Penn State, Boise State. Ohio State touchdown in the fourth quarter late to kind of put Oregon away. Oregon tries to make a couple of plays to get back in it, turnover, game will end. I think it'll be closer than the 9-point margin I'm giving it. But this, Coyle, I mean, you said it best. I think the winner of this game will win the national title. I hope that's correct. These were the two teams I placed the future on in the preseason to win it all. Ohio State was plus 380. Oregon was plus 750. So whoever wins this game, I'll be pulling for really hard the rest of the way. But that being said, I mean, I'm interested to see what Dylan Gabriel, this Ohio State team looked completely different. Everyone in that basement that when we were watching the game had Tennessee, and we were just, completely disappointed. That Ohio State team looked totally different. And maybe, who the hell knows, Michigan isn't as bad as we thought. Because like I said, they just went and beat Bama today. But I'm really interested to see this rematch and see how it goes. College football, I feel like it's tough to sweep a team. Even if Oregon does win again, it's going to be really, really close. I think this game is going to be awesome. The Rose Bowl always does seem to deliver. It's very rare. I think it was like McCaffrey's senior year when Stanford killed Iowa. That game wasn't close, but usually the Rose Bowl delivers, and I think it's going to again. I think it's going to be a very great game.
Yeah, I think this is going to be an awesome one. I think it has the potential to be an all-time classic in terms of the college football playoff that we've seen. We've seen a lot of blowouts. I mean, we saw them in the first round, but going back, like historically, the first round, there's been a lot of blowouts. We haven't really had that many great games in this. I think this has the potential to be one. And that Ohio State performance against Tennessee, as you said, Joe, we were all over Tennessee in that game. But that was the most impressive performance I think I saw from a team in the country this year. They played pissed off. You finally saw all that talent come together as a team, and they just dominated that game from start to finish. And we talked about it where it would have been interesting to see what would have happened if that face mask sack on Will Howard was called at the beginning. But from that point on, when Jeremiah Smith caught that deep touchdown, you knew that game was just about over after that. That was a team on a mission, and I think that they're going to be coming out firing in this one. They have so much momentum, and they're kind of that fire under their ass right now. And Oregon's been kind of sitting at home these past few weeks, relaxing and getting ready for this game. Dan Lanning for sure is going to get these guys fired up, and I think it's going to be a back-and-forth battle. But I think this is an awesome one. I really love the over, too. I think Ohio State's offense last week looked as good as it has all season, and I think that they're going to be able to, in this weather as well, kind of go out there and sling the rock. They really ran the ball well last week, and that was a really good Tennessee defense throughout the season that they did that, too. So this one's going to go back and forth down to the wire, but I'm taking Ohio State to win this one as well, 35-31. So I'll go Ohio State minus 2.5 in the over of 55.5. 55.5 there, my favorite play of the weekend. The week, I guess. All right, final game. There's one I'm sure you're looking forward to the most, Joe. Number 7, Notre Dame at 12-1 versus number 2, Georgia at 11-2. 8:45 kick on ESPN. Georgia, 1.5-point favorite here, over under 44.5, Joe. And if we find a way to get Notre Dame Penn State, that might break the record for like most ever watched college football game ever. I feel like those are two of the biggest fan bases in the entire country. Be a cool thing to see. Will it happen, Joe?
I don't think so, Coyle. And I mean, no surprises here. I'm picking against Notre Dame like I usually do, even though I swear I'm a fan. I'm not like a, Frank the Tank type who's going to just bitch and moan about his team. This is just, I don't trust Riley Leonard. I was talking with Brace about this, Coyle, when we were down in Kashi when we were moving you in, and we were in the bar with him talking. I just don't trust Riley Leonard against this SEC defense. And I know Georgia's defense this year hasn't been like it's been in years past, but they're still very talented. The game is still in New Orleans. That is SEC country. It's going to be even though Notre Dame travels very well, so do Georgia fans. I think it's going to be a pro Georgia crowd. I am interested to see how Notre Dame handles that athleticism. And the one thing with Notre Dame, which every single year in my life, when they've gotten to a either a BCS bowl game, a New Year's Six bowl game, the playoff, the BCS national title. Notre Dame hasn't won a major bowl game since the 90s. And if you want to count that streak broken with the first round playoff win, you could, because I think that it's weird because I, for one, would count that as like a, the streak is over type thing. But it's just going to be very interesting seeing how Notre Dame plays against the SEC champion, and it's going to kind of be a testament to how Marcus Freeman, is building this program and where we're truly at. Because there's a world where Notre Dame goes out there and just gets stomped for 4 quarters, and it's like 38-7, and people are like, "We really let Notre Dame, do this to us again." But there's a world Notre Dame, I think defensively, we can hang with anyone in the country because I've seen it all year long. It's just late. I don't know if I trust Riley Leonard. I know Georgia doesn't have Carson Beck, but I'm going to go with Georgia in a low-scoring, close game, 20-17. So I'll take a -1.5, and I'm going to take the under 44.5.
Yeah, I think when we were talking about kind of where I was talking about at the beginning a little with Ashton Genty and all the rest that he was able to get the past few weeks, I think the team that benefited from this bye and the rest the most was Georgia, and being able to kind of usher in this new quarterback and get him all the first team reps that he could get without Carson Beck and Gunnar Stockton there. So when you look at that, I'm interested to see. We saw them move the ball pretty well against Texas, I thought, when he was in the game. But still, when you look at his stats, it wasn't anything crazy. And I think we're going to see them really kind of go back to the old Stetson Bennett formula of we're going to live and die with the defense, manage the game for us, and so on. But Gunnar Stockton doesn't have Lad McConkey, Brock Bowers to kind of lean on as well. So really interested to see the way that they attack this game. Notre Dame has played so well since that Northern Illinois game. I feel like I've been giving myself pats on the back for a while for this, but I said after that Northern Illinois game, they were going to run the table and make the playoffs, and they've done that and more. They've been, I think you can argue, the most dominant team in the country since that game, blowing out really everyone in their path. That Indiana game wasn't close until the end with kind of some garbage time scores. So I think Notre Dame is kind of on top of the world right now, like confidence-wise, feeling really good in this one. I don't think they're going in scared to this one as well. You can look at the Georgia helmet and potentially get intimidated, see all their track record of success, all that Kirby Smart has done in the college football playoff. But I do think Notre Dame is going into this one confident. It's not the Georgia of the past. I think this is a human Georgia team, not a immortal Georgia team, and that Notre Dame is going to win this game and go to the college football semifinals. That would set up a great potential matchup there with Notre Dame and Penn State. I just don't think Georgia has enough on offense this year. And I know you're talking about Riley Leonard, but the thing with Riley Leonard, at least, is if the passing game's not working, he can still hurt you with his legs as well. We've seen throughout his career, obviously. So I'm going to take Notre Dame to win this one in the slight upset. I also like the over of 44.5. I think Notre Dame is able to move the ball a little bit on this Georgia defense. Give me Notre Dame 30, Georgia 27, Notre Dame plus 1.5, over 44.5 there. All right, only 4 games to break down, Joe. Then we'll be back with the semis and then obviously our championship. But our last podcast potentially ever from no, we got Thursday. We'll be back with college basketball, but last one in this room for then until we're in a new studio at the new house. But I guess just before we wrap it up, Joe, favorite bet on the board for these games?
I mean, I was kind of talking about with Arizona State. I know that does kind of seem like a little bit of a long shot there. But I do love the under tomorrow at 1 o'clock in the Texas Arizona State game because I just don't see Arizona State being able to keep up with that number. But if we're taking that game away, I would say my next favorite would be the over tonight because I do think Penn State will be able to score, and I think Boise State will be able to keep up with Penn State, and I think over 53 is a pretty good bet.
First drive touchdown for Arizona State tomorrow, plus 360. If you're interested in that,
Definitely going to sprinkle that.
My favorite, I'm going to go Ohio State, Oregon over 55.5. I think that one's a shootout. I know Ohio State's got really good defense, but the speed on Oregon, I think they're able to spread them out a little bit, and that one goes back and forth. Ohio State's offense looked great last game. So that'll do it for Beef Up Front in the year 2024. We'll be back on Thursday night. Really loaded college basketball slate on Saturday. To, I think, really kind of kick off the season for that as well. But as always, everyone, thank you for tuning in. Have a safe and happy New Year. Enjoy the games tonight. Enjoy the games tomorrow, and we'll talk soon.